Beyond Reason Radio.
So, headline from Fox News here. Trump declares dawn of a new Middle East as he presides over the signing of historic deals. Now, the main reason I wanted to start with this is because, really, this is the biggest news story probably, outside of coronavirus, probably this year. This is one of the biggest accomplishments of the Trump administration. And he's putting it out there today, but he's not really getting a lot of credit for it, obviously. But I just want to give you some of the highlights. President Trump today declared the dawn of a new Middle East. This is as he presided over the signing of two, not one, but two historic Middle East diplomatic deals between Israel and two Gulf nations. He said, "We're here this afternoon to change the course of history," which this does. "After decades of division and conflict, we mark the dawn of a new Middle East," he said in a ceremony in the South Lawn of the White House. He says, "Thanks to great courage of the leaders of these three countries, we take a major stride towards a future in which people of all faiths and backgrounds live together in peace and prosperity." Now, the deals are between Israel and the United Arab Emirates and Israel and Bahrain, which just a few years ago seemed impossible. Under the Obama administration, they were basically acting like it was impossible. Under the Obama administration, they thought it was better to deal with Iran than actually in Syria and Libya than actually deal with these countries who are supposed to already be with our allies and get them on the side with Israel. And Trump, think about this I'm going to talk more about this later on in the show. I just want to start with this because it really is big news. Think about the fact that Obama was given the Nobel Peace Prize before he did anything. And then after he was given that prize, he basically failed with everything he did on foreign policy, especially in the Middle East. Almost everything Obama did when it comes to foreign policy was a giant failure. So he gets the Nobel Peace Prize and then fails at actually bringing peace, especially to the Middle East. Trump is actually bringing peace to the Middle East. He's nominated, and I guarantee you he'll never get it. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. We're back. I was gone all of last week because I was hosting the morning show.
Yeah.
But we're back this week, 7. I'm back today. We'll be back tomorrow as well, 7 to 8 p.m. here on News Radio WFLA Orlando. If you miss any of the show, make sure to catch the podcast on the iHeartRadio app. And joining me in the studio today, we announced last time, Tom Benson.
Oh, yeah.
Retired. He's my usual producer. But Melissa usually produces with me in the morning show. And she actually asked, requested, which might be beyond reason in and of itself.
What was I thinking?
She actually asked, "Hey, can I produce Beyond Reason?
Hey, can I come in and hang out? Can it be the Mike and Melissa deal for a bit?" It's Beyond Reason. It's your show. I just want to help a little color commentary here and there.
Exactly. So Melissa's here, and how are you tonight, Melissa?
I am good. I ate a sandwich. I have some water.
I saw you ate the sandwich right here in the studio.
I know, right?
Well, it's a storage closet anyway.
In the closet, not near the gear.
We're still in the storage closet
in case an engineer is listening. I did not eat it anywhere near any equipment. It's actually going to be fun. I think because tomorrow night we'll be broadcasting live also probably on Facebook as well as on Periscope. So
yeah, by the way, you can like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page. Follow me on Twitter at Michael Yaffee and follow the station on Twitter at WFLA Orlando. And of course, you're on social media as well.
Yeah. Just Melissa and Fox has got 2 X's because one was not enough.
That's why. I don't think I ever asked you why. Why the 2 X's? Thought it would be cool or something.
No, because people were wanting to spell Melissa wrong with like 2 L's and 1 S, and I was like, it's 2 S's, 2 X's. It's just easier that way.
By the way, someone actually just commented to me on Facebook who's listening to us right now and said, "Who are you to judge? Trump could get the peace prizes." I'm not saying Trump doesn't deserve it. I'm just saying that we all know.
Oh, the odds are not in his favor?
Because of the Nobel Peace committee, they don't want to give it to Trump.
But they nominated him in the first place, so.
Well, actually, the way the nomination works, it was a Norwegian politician, believe it or not, who nominated him, and somebody else nominated him. So it's not necessarily the committee that makes the decision that actually does the nominations.
I see.
So they're not happy. They don't want to give it to him.
So, Michael, we're on the precipice of, like, this huge deal in the whole world with the Middle East. And as Trump said, it wasn't really the back door, but it was a door, and I took it.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. And there's a reason why this is happening now. There's a reason why it's working. There's a reason why it didn't happen under Obama. And that's all something we're going to get to later on the show. We actually have a ton of stuff to get to on the show today. We have to talk about the climate change debate again that's being brought up because of the wildfires.
Oh, I know. I've been abused with it on Facebook.
Of course you have. It's usually the you don't believe in science.
Oh, no.
Stuff.
Now it's like, get all the information that you need on climate change in your face.
Oh, you mean from Facebook itself? I noticed that today.
Yeah, it's the big. It's been that way for like the last 2 days.
Mm-hmm. It's because they want to hurt Trump with it.
Yeah.
It's just like coronavirus. They want to hurt Trump with it. They want to ignore the riots because.
Riots? What?
Yeah, that would help Trump because he's a law and order candidate. Actually, some news on the riots as well. Lancaster protesters, a lot of the rioters there, a Pennsylvania judge threw the book at them, set their bail at $1 million each.
$1 million.
I didn't know he had the authority to do that. We'll see how long this stands, but obviously he's trying to send a message.
Yeah.
For allegedly rioting in the wake of the police shooting of a knife-wielding Lancaster man.
Okay.
And the video shows he had a knife and everything. And
Did he wield it? Was it Merriam-Webster definition of wielding a knife, or did he just have a knife?
No, he wielded it.
Okay.
He did. You watch the video. He's out. He's like yelling and pointing it at them.
I can see the elaborate. I mean, because that's $1 million to me. I have no concept.
Well, it depends what they were doing. I mean, if they were violent riots.
Okay.
I mean, to me, and I understand your concerns about this. To me, what else can you do to stop these?
Yeah, but it's something. I mean, that's not even attainable. A judge will get. Oh, come on, this is ridiculous.
Well, then they stay in jail.
No, it gets thrown out, and then
it's
and
true.
then there is no lesson.
I do wonder how long it's going to last because I feel like something like that's going to get a lot of attention, and there'll be a process, and they'll lower it, and it'll be all about sending a message. But speaking of the riots, the big topic I wanted to start with today is every time I look at the news lately, especially when it comes to Black Lives Matter, now it's climate change, whatever it is, it's kind of disheartening. I know I'm not the only one who feels this way because we are losing the culture war. We are losing the culture. And with all of these issues, I can tell that there are a lot of Trump supporters, a lot of conservatives, a lot of Republicans, even some moderates out there. They're afraid to say what they really feel about some of these issues because the onslaught from all these different aspects of our culture, it's overwhelming. Now I can't even watch Netflix. I like Netflix. That was kind of something the country could agree on, that we could get together and watch something on Netflix. But now Netflix puts out this Cuties movie, which is almost straight up pedophilia if it's not.
Yeah, well.
Sexualizing young girls.
But they also have a lot of that anime and Korean porn stuff, too. You got to look. But it's there, and
Oh, has that been there for a while? I've not checked that out.
This Cuties thing's really caused some sort of, and now it's like everybody, if you get it off your computer, it's horrible. Netflix boycott.
Yeah, but they're but Netflix, there's a backlash to it a little bit, which is good. But Netflix is defending their position, and the media is defending it. I mean, when you talk about the onslaught in the culture wars, they control sports, news media, Hollywood, social media. I know I'm forgetting other things, but I mean, you talk about big businesses and advertising, it's all now about Black Lives Matter. there is so much, every aspect of our culture. They control the public schools, not only at the university level, but at the grade level. And I thought about this because I asked myself how did we get to this point? Well, the fact is, this has been in the works for a long time. There are books written out about how there was concerted efforts to take over these institutions for the radical left. This has been going on for decades now, and it's kind of reached its precipice, and now they have taken over and they have used this to push all this against us. But the question is that it? The question is can we fight back? The question is, can we win? Can we get the culture back? Can we make any effort on any of this? And the thing is, I was thinking about the Tea Party in 2010. When the Tea Party hit, it was after Obama was elected. It really gained strides in 2010. It had to do with the backlash on all the stimulus spending and what was going on in our government. And the Tea Party was wildly successful at one thing: getting out the vote, organizing people so you could get conservatives in positions of government. And they were widely successful. They voted in a lot of people on the state levels, on the local levels, but then they voted people in Congress. There was a huge Tea Party wave that got Republicans in control of Congress. And a lot of that eventually, they failed with Mitt Romney, but a lot of that eventually led to President Trump getting elected. And they were really successful at taking control of a lot of aspects of our government. But what we forgot about when we were a part of the Tea Party, when we were moving to take all these aspects of our government back, we realized that the left said, okay, you guys can have the government. We're going to focus on the culture. We're going to focus on sports, all those things I mentioned, sports, media, public schools, all of that, social media. We're just going to bombard you in the culture. So the government making the choice, the government will decide things, but once they decide something, there'll be riots in the street because all of this has been taught. And the culture will be bombard everyone so much that the government will cave, and everyone will cave. And the Tea Party's like, wait, we took control of all these offices. And that shows you exactly where we are right now and what we need to do. We focused so much on the government. We focused so much on politics. We focused so much on reforming the Republican Party, getting people in office. We need to now put that focus in a new movement that takes back our culture. It can be done. It's going to take a long time. It's going to take a lot of work, and frankly, it's going to be up to you. I'm just a radio guy. I'm just giving you the idea. I'm putting it in your mind. You go out there. You do that. I mean, you don't want to act. Do I have to put in the work here?
Yeah, someone does. I mean, you're going to throw it out there. Take back our culture, and if you're not careful, people are going to say you're sounding racist, Michael.
Yeah, there is that. But that's because they get away with that because they own the cultural institutions. So what they do, and we'll talk more about this in a moment, but the pressure is getting to the point where you're afraid to say anything because you might lose your job. You're afraid to lose friends on social media. Now you can be afraid to keep your business because there might be riots around your business and they destroy your business.
It's fear. Fear, Michael.
And the fear has worked. And there's a couple of reasons why we have failed at the culture war. And one of them is because we lost focus on it. We focused so much on politics that we forgot about the culture. And the left didn't forget. The left kept pushing. They've been doing this for years, and they keep pushing. A couple other reasons why this is happening as well. And we're going to talk about that next and much more. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes. The voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason is back now.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is Beyond Reason Radio. We're on until 8 p.m. tonight right here on News Radio WFLA Orlando. But don't forget to check out the podcast as well if you miss any of the show, because these are shows you need to listen to the whole hour. So you can get the podcast in the iHeartRadio app or anywhere that podcasts are available. I'm your host, Yaffee. Melissa Fox is here as well, producing, and we've been talking about the culture war and why the right has basically been losing the culture war. And I told you that one of the main reasons is we focus so much on politics. We were so successful with the Tea Party movement, getting back a lot of our political institutions, that we completely forgot about the culture. But it's something I've noticed as well when it comes to conservatives. A lot of conservatives out there, they feel like the culture and the cultural issues are not important. At least that's kind of the impression I've gotten lately. Because it's sort of the libertarian in a lot of us. When you believe in limited government, you kind of want to have this attitude of live and let live. Let everyone do their own thing. You know, it's because we believe in individual liberty and individual rights. So we want people to kind of do their own thing. So we focused on government, and we told the government, you focus on fiscal policy, you focus on foreign policy, but don't worry about the culture. The problem with this kind of thinking is, yes, we don't want the government dictating culture in this country. I definitely don't trust our politicians dictating culture in our country. So if we're Republicans, we don't want to move to all the politicians to say, you're going to dictate the culture, you're going to push cultural issues. I think that was one of the problems in the past. We wanted politicians to push cultural issues. There was a backlash against that. So now we're afraid to address cultural issues. But really, when it comes to conservatives taking back the culture, it has to be outside of government. It has to be beyond who you elect into office. It has to be kind of what the left did for years. If you are a conservative, if you are a believer in individual rights, if you are a believer in what makes this country a great country, you need to be a teacher at a university. You need to start an organization that promotes those values. Now, some of this is starting. I mean, there's like the Young American Foundation, which is a good one for college students. Turning Point, another pretty good one for college students.
Turning Point's real good, actually.
Yeah. They still focus a little too much on politics, I think. But stuff like that. So you need to be a teacher. You need to take back these institutions. So you need to go into Hollywood. If you're a conservative, find a way to make movies in Hollywood if you can.
They're out there, you know. There are conservative Hollywood stars. You have to do like a Google search.
I know, yeah, and they're scared.
Yeah.
They're scared because of the cultural onslaught.
You know, there's that Kirstie Alley. Yeah, she's out there. There's a lot of big speakers on Twitter that are actually impressive. James Wood,
so.
Of course.
Yeah, James Wood, yeah.
Antonio Sabatino Jr., whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a few, you know, that are outspoken. They're out. Eric Carmen. But they're few and far between, but we need more. And not just outspoken on Twitter, but actually doing something.
Yeah. I mean, when you research what the left has done since the 60s, I mean, a lot of this was organized. It started out with a book in academia. It turned into creating an organization, whether it was La Raza and having to deal with a lot of identity politics, or if it was a lot of the postmodernism pushed in our universities, or whatever it is. That stuff has been pushed for a long time, and they've kept at it. And conservatives have just kind of said, "Okay, we're just not going to deal with this anymore. We're going to try to take political office," and we've lost the culture. But there is hope, though, I think, because I think we can take it back, and there are some ways that we have made a difference. One way, which is really interesting, and this is somewhat government policy, but it's also a cultural thing. There was a time not too long ago in this country where no one believed in homeschooling, for instance. Homeschooling was actually illegal in some states, but there was a lot of people who didn't really believe in it. Now, because a lot of conservative Christians didn't want to put their kids in public schools, they wanted to give them a better avenue, and if they could stay home and teach them and do the right things, they homeschooled them. Now homeschooling is much more prevalent than it used to be. Abortion is another big issue. I know everyone's afraid to talk about abortion. Oh, that's another issue where it's a culture and we might lose votes in the election. But the fact is, there was a time where even prominent Republicans were pro-choice. If you go back in time and you look up George H.W. Bush and some of the stuff he said about abortion back in the 80s and 90s, it is much more pro-choice than it is now. So it shows that over time you can make a lot of progress. But we have a long way to go. And it has to actually be don't give up and actually fight back. But the last final thing I want to say on this topic is I do think that one thing that is really missing in the conservative movement in maybe the last 5 years, Christianity, faith. In the conservative movement, Christian faith used to be such a big part of it. But I've noticed a lot with the younger generation, they're a little afraid to go down that road. They're a little afraid to be strong about their faith. They're a little afraid. They think they're going to turn people off if they're really strong about their Christian faith.
Well, Michael,
I think that's a mistake.
It probably is, but unfortunately, there's been so many charlatans out there. And think about it. From your bakers and on, the PTL, people had gotten a little point where religion and organized religion has kind of been frowned upon in a certain way. And a lot of communities have lost that. You know, there should be a church on every corner, and the community was wrapped around the church, and it's just not that way anymore.
I know. And one reason why that is, the church has failed. Unfortunately, the church has really... I'm not afraid to call out my own. I'm a big church guy, but the church has failed this country in the last couple of decades. But how did they fail?
Well,
what happened to them?
A couple of ways. Yeah.
There's many different ways, but I think one of the biggest ways is they tried to become too much like the world. I think they tried to be overly tolerant and be cool and hip and tried to fit into the culture, tried to fit into the world so much. Sure,
they adapted. I mean, it used to be like the Catholic Church, that divorce was, you got tossed out. And now all that's just, another day.
And, that was one extreme, getting tossed out. But now it's gone to the other extreme where they don't even want to talk about divorce. They don't even want to talk about these issues anymore. Why would you go to church then? Why would someone want to go to church if they're just saying the same things that everyone else is saying? There's no reason to, if it's just like everyone else in the culture. If I'm in trouble, if I'm a sinner and I want repentance, I want to find repentance and then redemption, I'm not going to go to a place that's just like everywhere else in the culture. The church actually needs to stand up for something again and stand up for the truth again. And they've been so afraid to do that because they just want to get more butts in the seats, because a lot of it has to do with money, unfortunately, and getting the offerings and having these big mega churches that now it's failing. And they're like, why are we failing? Because you focused on the wrong things.
People saw through it.
Exactly. So the failure of the church is responsible for a lot of this. The church has got to work to take back the culture. Conservatives got to work to take back the culture. We got to take back the institutions, and we have to fight to do that. And it's going to take years. It's not going to be something that we're going to see, in 2 years, everything's like a utopia. The left didn't work that way. They worked a long time to get to this point, and it's going to be a long time to fight back. A lot more issues we have to get to. This whole climate change debate. I'm going to tell you why I've always been sick of the climate change debate. We'll get to that in a moment. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you heart Beyond Reason Radio, listen to the Beyond Reason Radio podcast on iHeartRadio. Just download the iHeartRadio app and search Beyond Reason Radio. This is Orlando's Smart Talk Radio. Beyond Reason Radio continues now.
Joe Biden. So first they were using coronavirus as a political weapon against Trump. Now they are using climate change once again as a political weapon against Trump. Now this has to do with the wildfires that are going on in the West, and the wildfires are awful. It does seem like the past couple of years, especially in California, but now it's gone into Oregon and other states over there. The wildfires are pretty bad. It's pretty awful. And they think, okay, well, we're going to use climate change. Now, they never have a real solution to the problem of climate change. It's a lot of buzzwords like renewable energy. If you think that's just going to magically solve the problem of climate change, you're out of your mind. Renewable energy. I always say this about renewable energy. What do you think solar panels are made out of? What do you think windmills are made out of? You think they're made out of trees and leaves and whatever? No, they're made out of things that we dig out of the ground. They're made out of raw materials. And while they might have less greenhouse emissions on the back end, they create a lot of other environmental problems that are not thought about, really. I mean, deforestation could be one of them, but the raw materials that it would take to make this completely 100% renewable energy, it's unprecedented. And I don't think people really think about that. It just sounds good.
Yeah, going green.
Going green. And then what always gets me is, okay, if you really believed we need to cut emissions, there are pretty easy ways we could do it immediately. Immediately, we could get it done. And they never want to do what would actually work the fastest. One, nuclear energy. Nuclear energy doesn't have, you have nuclear waste, but you have practically no carbon emissions from nuclear energy. So you could do that. We used to do a lot more of it. You could do that again. If this is such an emergency that we need to get done now because the planet's on fire, well, let's build these nuclear plants. We already know how to do that. We already know it's reliable. We already know it works. We already know it's safe. Let's do that.
Michael, come on now.
But they don't want to do it. When you mention that,
sense.
When you mention that, no. That it's a crisis, but not that bad.
No.
The other way is what we're already doing is natural gas. A lot of these natural gas power plants, they have way less carbon emissions than the coal and the oil that we were using in the past. And every time they talk about building a natural gas power plant, there was one they tried to build in Tampa. The environmentalists tried to block it. So I'm thinking, okay, you believe this is such an emergency that we need action now, even though the action you even want to take is going to make such a minimal difference, it really doesn't matter. But you believe this is such an emergency, we need to take action now. But when you actually have steps that could be done almost immediately, make a difference almost immediately.
No, we can't do that.
No, we can't, because it's not the perfect solution. They're still not green enough. Oh, it's never going to be good enough. Never good. It's just like with any other issue. With coronavirus, Trump gets more testing, he gets more PPE, gets more ventilators. Oh, it wasn't good enough. Doesn't matter, because this is all being used for politics. But Biden actually went after Trump over this yesterday, and he said something that's very interesting to me. It's not getting enough attention, but it shows how Democrats and the left really think. Here it is.
Well, like with our federal response to COVID-19, the lack of a national strategy on climate change overall leaves us with a patchwork of solutions. As a matter of fact, it's been made worse by the changes this administration has made. I'm speaking from Delaware. We're the lowest lying state in the nation relative to sea level.
So he said it would make it worse. But notice what he said at the beginning there. A national strategy. We need a national strategy. Just like with the coronavirus. I kept hearing that with the coronavirus. We need a national strategy. It's another one of those buzzwords. Yeah, one of those platitudes.
Could you define that? Because I'm just a simple girl. And I'm not really sure what this national strategy would be.
I mean,
is everyone going to be involved, or all the states going to stand up and say, no, I think this was a good idea? I mean, really? Come on. Let's just create another committee. To oversee the committee that oversees.
DC. Yeah, we'll just create another bipartisan commission. They'll just get so much done.
Boy.
I can tell you what the national strategy is. It's have the federal government raise more taxes and implement more laws on a nationwide basis and take away states' rights. That's what it is.
I'd like to say no.
I mean, that's what it is. I mean, they hate federalism so much. Every issue now is going to be, we're going to push a national strategy. Why? Because it gets more control for them. They get more power. They get more money. Well, the states are not doing a good enough job. This federalism stuff, states' rights, it's just too unorganized. We need a national strategy. And it's not, they're going to do that with everything now. You're going to hear that with everything.
It's weird when you stuck your... Now, this is visual, folks, okay? No, it's radio. We'll be doing some video tomorrow. But, Michael said, Nationals, and he put his hand up in the air, and it's just how you did it looked a little brown shirtish, like you should have a little toop of a mustache.
No.
National strategy!
I wasn't going for that, but I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. I mean, they want more control. And that has always been the biggest problem when it comes to the climate change debate I've had for years on this show. I've talked about this. The reason why I've always been skeptical of the man-made climate change argument is because notice that every solution is perfect for liberal Democrats. If you believe in more power for the federal government, if you believe in higher taxes, if you believe in more regulation on businesses, if you believe in all of these different things that the leftists love, well, climate change seems to just fall right in line with that. Oh, well, we need higher taxes, but that would hurt the economy. Yeah, but we're destroying the planet. Oh, well, that's convenient for your argument. The planet's dying, so we need higher taxes.
Where's the church stand on climate change? Because it sort of sounds almost like the liberals are creating endgame, if you will, with regard to climate change.
What do you mean?
Is it biblical?
In terms of what?
Like
one world government and all that?
The whole world is going to die. Climate change. And the
Bible.
I
definitely believe in evil forces in the world, and I'm sure there's evil forces trying to push us in that direction. And a lot of it, I mean, some of it is straight up worshiping the earth. It's straight up paganism. I mean, I'll be straight with that. I mean, a lot of it is. They don't want to believe God's in control of any of this. Now, they'll have little sort of buzzwords like, well, we need to be stewards of the planet. They'll kind of say that just to have a Bible verse in there. But they don't actually believe God's in control of any of this. It's us. We need to worship the planet. But their arguments, climate change is the most convenient thing for the left to push their agenda, probably in the history of this country. Outside of maybe the virus now. The virus was another thing. You want more power for the federal government. You want more control from the top down. Well, there's an invisible virus that we all need to be afraid of, so we have to shut everything down. Climate change is the same thing.
So it's like COVID put a hole in the ozone and we're all going to die.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, if they could somehow combine climate change and COVID into one giant issue that they can push on us to take control of us, that's what they would do. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't some truth to some of this stuff. I'm not saying that coronavirus isn't real. I'm not saying climate change isn't real.
Over hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I mean, we could go into the whole science of it. What I'm saying is they'll take a theory like that. Climate change was a theory pretty much brought up in the 80s. In the 70s, it used to be we were headed towards an ice age.
Yes.
Climate change has been debated in this country since the beginning, believe it or not. In fact, Thomas Jefferson got in debates over climate change that was caused by deforestation. I mean, it's been back and forth in this country since the beginning. But there might be some climate change going on. But what they do is they grab that science, and then they expand it into this big leftist agenda. And then if you disagree with it, at least their agenda, then you don't believe in science. Well, that's convenient.
Well, science is wrong.
We can't have a debate on the science. We can't even have a debate on how to approach this. Because there's actually evidence that less people die from natural disasters than they did 50 years ago. But nobody ever wants to say that. So you could have a legitimate scientific debate on exactly what's happening to our climate. But the left use that and then use it to push their agenda. It's convenient. You talk about an inconvenient truth. It's the most convenient so-called truth for the left that's happened in this country's history. Of course, it didn't stop Biden, though. Joe Biden went after Trump on this. Here's what he said.
If you give a climate arsonist 4 more years in the White House, why would anyone be surprised if we have more America ablaze?
Oh, he's a climate arsonist.
Ablaze.
Everything is Trump's fault. Now,
this is the finger wagging of this is how you try to win the election, is by saying how bad your opponent is instead of.
That's all they have.
Yeah, they don't have any reason to highlight anything that because they haven't.
What I find really interesting about all of this, though, is Trump's actually been working pretty hard on trying to manage these fires. Trump went to California, talked to the leaders there, talked to the governor there, and actually helped come up with solutions. You know, he taxed Trump for not paying attention to any of this, and Trump's there.
Yeah.
And actually, Newsom was there with Trump yesterday. They had a meeting on this. Several of the leaders in California and Oregon had a meeting on this.
Scientists and stuff, yeah.
And here's some of what Gavin Newsom said.
There's no question when you look past this decade and looking past almost 1,000+ years that we have not done justice on our forest management. I don't think anyone disputes that.
He actually admits that, maybe some of this has to do with forest management, which the evidence shows, there's a lot of this that has to do with forest management. There's a reason why these fires are able to spread so fast. You need more than heat to create a fire.
Whole bunch of ground cover.
Exactly.
But didn't the argument that Trump took away money from them or something? I mean, there's always going to be one of those arguments, right?
Well, yeah. And some of it is the federal government's fault. The federal government does own a lot of land in California. Mm-hmm. And the federal government hasn't done the best job of this either, but that's because the environmentalists have been pushing against anything you want to do in that regard for years.
It's a conundrum.
Mm-hmm. And now Gavin Newsom actually admits here, though, that him and the Trump administration are going to work in the future to deal with this problem. Here it is.
And, Mr. President, just to the supervisor's point, that's exactly what the stewardship partnership that we advance with your administrations will do in the next 20 years, is we're sharing maps, we're sharing resources, we're prioritizing, we're doubling the number of acres federally managed, state managed, and I will say just humbly, we've got to double it still, meaning the partnership was significant. It was first in California's history with the U.S. government, but we're going to need to do a lot more in the extent we can provide.
That's something I feel so strongly about.
Oh, that evil Trump doesn't care about the fires, even though he actually admits he wants to work with the government.
It's clearly, not climate change. Okay, guys, let's just get. I wish I could talk to Biden, but right now he's trying to learn how to pronounce Kissimmee as we speak.
Yeah,
Climate
he realizes
arsonist.
He might be in trouble in Florida, so he's here right now.
Mm-hmm. But he's still not going to South Florida. I don't know. That's like the tropics.
Well, the Cubans are down there, and they actually want to talk to him about.
Cubans are up here too. Okay.
Well, that's true. Actually, yeah, that's very true, and that's why he can't win the Latino vote in this state. That's why he's having a lot of trouble, because they understand what's going on.
They know better. They lived under
they lived it for sure. Yeah. Coming up in the next segment, I do want to address a little bit more on the Middle East peace deals, plus a couple of things that made Yaffee laughy. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
Download the iHeart Radio app and catch the Beyond Reason Radio podcast. The conscience in your ear telling you the difference between right and wrong. Yaffee is back on the air.
So, there's peace deals in the Middle East right now. A lot of that has to do with President Trump. And nobody wants to talk about it, even though it's pretty amazing. What's even more amazing, though, is what is happening with the peace deals. So for years, by the way, this is Beyond Reason Radio. Welcome back to the show. I'm Yaffee here with Melissa. For years, we heard that the only way to get peace in the Middle East is to placate the Palestinians. The Palestinian Authority and all that. We need to give them more land. We need to just give in to all of their demands. And all of a sudden we'll have peace in the Middle East. Everything will be hunky-dory. And they actually did placate them. A lot of cases. Gave them some of the land. Then Hamas took over, and they still attacked Israel. And all of a sudden, none of that's changed. Instead of placating to the Palestinians, the countries in the Middle East are realizing, maybe the groups, the PLO or Hamas, maybe they're actually terrorists who are against progress and who want nothing more than to destroy Israel. And maybe Israel's actually not so bad, because we have this other bad actor up there, Iran, that we really don't like because they're definitely against progress. And maybe we should actually partner with a good country like Israel so we can have more leverage against Iran. So how about we just make peace with Israel? We don't even need them to cave and all this Palestinian stuff because none of that was ever going to work. What a thought. An amazing thought there. All these years, my whole life, I've heard, oh, well, we're going to have to make this deal with the Palestinians and this deal with the Palestinians. And I said for years, why? It's never going to be good enough. How about we just stand up for Israel and stand up for what's right because Israel's on the right side? Why did we decide that we needed to placate to terrorists like the Palestinians? Tom Benson used to always bring this up. He's no longer here. Melissa Fox is here, though.
Hi.
You've probably heard this. There's a quote out there that if the Palestinians took away all their weapons, got rid of all their weapons, there would probably be peace in that area of the Middle East. If Israel took away all their weapons, they would be destroyed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That shows exactly the mindset there. You think Israel's the problem, yet if Israel took all away the weapons, they'd be destroyed. If the Palestinians actually took away their weapons and wanted to make peace with Israel, it would be a much better place. So, but I'm supposed to believe that Israel's the problem? So the main reason why this was able to work is because they finally started to realize Iran's bad. The Trump administration got rid of the Iran deal, which was done under Obama. Mm-hmm. And the Obama administration failed at everything. They failed in Libya.
Hand him a whole bunch of money, too?
They gave him back a bunch of money that was under sanctions, in which they used to just build up their military and create more problems in the Middle East. That was totally predictable. But Obama failed when it came to Libya, when it came to Syria, when it came to Iran, when it came to all the stuff going in the Middle East.
He was only a city organizer, community organizer. He
was wrong on everything. Trump comes in, actually starts making peace deals, and
again, art of the deal. The guy's a businessman, okay? He's not, the most polite. He's very rude and coarse and crass, but he gets the job done.
Well, yeah. Exactly. I mean, I've said from the beginning, his biggest problem is his mouth.
Yeah, that's my biggest problem, too.
He has, well, we all know that.
I can relate. I know, but my point, Michael, is I can relate, all right?
Oh, but when it actually comes to sitting down and making decisions and putting other people in charge, he does a pretty good job.
Well, yeah, there's a good, delegation is one of the best things I think he does do. Put the right guy in charge of COVID, with Mike Pence, who's been wonderful. You can say what you want, but they are taking care of this COVID thing. I mean, it was disastrous. They've got it pretty much under control, and a vaccine is on the horizon. So,
yeah, he says it might come within the next few weeks.
Probably by mid to the end of October.
That would be amazing.
Also, get your flu shots. Michael, you're doing it this year. You're married now.
I know. I got to step up. Okay, wanted to end the show on a good note. I don't think I've actually done this in a little while, but a couple things you got to do. Some things that made Yaffee laughy.
Really?
Yes. Yes, things that made Yaffee laughy.
Okay.
People tell me this is like their favorite part of the show, by the way.
Do that again.
Let's play the this is something that
all right.
I literally thought this was a piece by the Babylon Bee when I first saw this online.
But there's been a follow-up. So let's do this. Ready?
This is Harris today talking about her administration.
You need to make sure you have a president in the White House who actually sees you, who understands your needs, who understands the dignity of your work, and who has your back. A Harris administration together with Joe Biden as the president of the United States, the Biden-Harris administration.
She tried to correct herself there, and I'm like, like, wait a minute, is this the Babylon Bee?
But Michael,
are they getting me?
The seed was planted,
and then later in the
I'm
day,
telling you, the seed was planted.
Later in the day, we hear this from Joe Biden himself.
Harris-Biden administration is going to relaunch that effort.
That's over in Tampa today.
The Harris-Biden administration. So,
Harris-Biden administration is going to... Harris-Biden administration.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, who You can't make this up.
No, you don't have to.
There's so many people.
Make me laugh.
The Babylon Bee is like, we don't have any material today.
No,
because the real news is actually a lot funnier.
Oh, gosh.
Although there were some stories of Babylon Bee recently where they said Harris is already vetting her VP candidates.
That's crazy talk.
Man. But, I mean, just... I put that on Twitter. I got a bunch of responses. You can follow me on...
I wonder how he's doing in Kissimmee.
Nah, I don't care. I mean, seriously. Well, I know I'm supposed to care, but I don't. You've been listening to Beyond Reason Radio. Make sure to check the podcast if you missed any of the show and share with your friends as well. You can like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page. Follow me on Twitter at Michael Yaffee. Thanks to Melissa for producing today. And we'll be back tomorrow at the same time. Catch you guys then.